Hello, friends, and welcome to the Optimized Advisor Podcast, where we focus on optimizing the well-being and best practices of insurance and financial professionals today. On this show, our objective is to help you optimize your life, optimize your profession, and learn from other optimized advisors. I'm your host, Scott Heinela. We hope you enjoy the show.
Charleston, yeah.
Yeah. Which is South Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had kind of a really rough couple of years. Went through a pretty rough time, and actually then towards the end of it, that whole walk, I was diagnosed with colon cancer. That was pretty eye-opening. I found, I was going through this walk, found the love of my life. Things were really kind of coming to the end, and we literally eloped on October 1. I got diagnosed on November 8th, and then cancer surgery December 15th. So,
wow.
Yeah, but we got it all. So
okay, well.
And it was one of those pivotal moments in my life that I look back on, and it was probably the greatest thing that could have happened to me. It made me really reevaluate what's important in my life. No more negative people, no more negative thoughts. Be blessed with what you have. So, you can always do the why me. Mm-hmm. And I did do that. I had a few weeks of pretty dark time, but then I had a pivotal moment. I can tell you exactly where I was in my office by the bay window, kind of having a moment to myself. And then I said, you know what? God knows I can handle it, so let's do this. And just got my mind right and just had a really kind of a pivotal moment, got as healthy as I could be mentally and physically. And we went into the surgery, and I was just, we got this.
Wow.
And we came out, and yeah, we were clean. So, I do an annual scan. I'll have another scan in January, but I feel great. I'm very blessed.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen to you.
Yeah.
So beginning and end, what was that journey did that look like?
I had a pretty pivotal moment. It started in 2019 into 2020. Rather successful. I feel like I could do whatever I wanted to do. I didn't really stress about finances, but I was not happy.
Okay. Okay. Pause there with that, because I would love to unpack that for a moment.
Okay.
But let's do the official intro here.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you.
To the Optimized Advisor Podcast in our remote studio today.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I appreciate it.
We, typically we record in our California studio, which has then become the Texas studio. And now we're all the way east, and here we are in our Boston. Well, not technically Boston.
It's a suburb.
It's a suburb of Boston. Thank you for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you.
It's a true pleasure to meet you, get to know you a little bit. Thank you, Bill, for making this happen.
Bill's great.
How do I exactly pronounce your last name? I want to do that
Cillo.
correctly for that. Okay. James Cillo.
Jason
Cillo.
Yeah.
I keep saying James because my son, his name's James.
Yeah.
And so it's stuck in my head.
Yeah.
My apologies.
No problem.
Side note, I am terrible with names, but I will never, ever, ever forget a face. So as long as we live, it's always my sincere apology to anybody who I'm communicating with. It's nothing to do with you. It's everything to do with me. It's what I always say.
It's not you, it's me.
I'd love to talk about a number of things with you.
Sure.
First of all, your journey with cancer and your bout with that, and how it's somewhat changed your outlook on life.
Yeah.
You touched on it briefly,
Sure.
but let's unpack that from the beginning.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated with that story, and hopefully you're willing to share a little bit more of that story from an intimate level. And,
Sure.
But let's learn about your journey in financial services.
Okay.
First and foremost, it's like how in the heck did you get here?
Oh my gosh, it's
what is your story? When did you know that you wanted to become a planner, an advisor?
I did not know I wanted to become. So my journey is really. I took.
Where'd you grow up?
The long path to get here.
Okay.
I grew up. I'm a New Hampshire thoroughbred.
You are.
I am.
Okay.
Born and raised. Never left.
Good for you.
I love that state. I've visited a lot of places, tropical United States, and I'm always excited to go back home to New Hampshire.
Okay.
We had the Four Seasons.
And it remains home.
It's home.
Okay.
Yeah. Getting a little expensive to live there now, but as of right now, it's home.
Right.
It'll always be my home. But yeah, to the financial industry, I took literally the long way to get here.
The longest way, or just a long way?
Pretty much the longest way.
Okay.
Yeah, the longest way as far as I'm concerned. I wish I could have kicked myself when I'm in my 20s to be along the way, but it was just my path.
Isn't it amazing when you sit at whatever point in your life and you're able to look back and reflect and you're like, if I only knew then what it is that I know now, where could we be?
Billionaire.
It's unbelievable, right?
It's unbelievable. Hindsight is bliss. Is not the truth.
Well, and as shallow as like dating, as an example, like you're so scared, afraid of women and all the things as a kid or a teenager or what have you. But if you know, the 22 or the 24-year-old, if you knew what it's just like you think about little things like that. And
I think it's funny because it's so easy to look back, coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Yeah.
But as I've gotten older and matured, and I do a lot of reflecting. Whenever I have a kind of a big event, or I always take time to kind of reflect. Mm-hmm. And I'm a big believer that's the path you had to go on, because you had to have those experiences, those journeys to get where you are today. Amen. I never, I did have a previous marriage. It was one of those things in my life. I'm like, but I wouldn't have two wonderful kids.
Right.
My kids are my life.
And so you have that to feel blessed about.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
100%.
Okay.
And
what were you doing before you were an advisor? And tell me this long story.
So I got out of high school. I was graduated the top, not number one. I was in the top 10 of my class. And everything you do is you go to college. I had no idea what I wanted to do.
Really?
No clue. Went into for physical
Other than
therapy.
that, academically, you're sharp and you're astute. And
no idea. I came from I love my parents. They're great people. They taught me loyalty, work ethic, how to be a good person. But I will say they're not financially savvy in the least bit.
Right.
I always joke when I got into my freshman year in college, and my greatest gift, and I came from very humble backgrounds. My dad worked his butt off. Mm-hmm. But we were not fortunate to have a lot of things.
Right.
But whatever we had, we were very grateful for. And I never really understood the social classes growing up, because all I knew was what we had. And I just assumed, okay, well, everyone kind of struggles to see when the next meal might come from, or
that was normal.
That was normal.
And normal for everybody.
Yeah. So that was my deal. And then I got to college, and I'll never forget, like they got me this IBM ThinkPad. It was the greatest graduation gift ever. And I don't even know what they paid for, but it was just amazing. And I had an external modem, and I didn't know really what a modem was. Mm-hmm. So it was like the internet was just kind of coming about. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget going into college, and I had, there was this girl that lived down the hall from me, and we're friends, and she opens up her laptop, it's color screen. She's like, yeah, I got an internal modem. I'm like, there's internal modems?
Yeah.
So that was really eye-opening for me. So,
around what year was that?
I went into college in 1995.
Okay.
Went to UNH. I went in for physical therapy. Sports medicine. That really wasn't my cup of tea. Then I thought, I'll go in for English. I'm grammatically the worst English person there is. I mean.
And you chose English.
Yeah, it's so bad. I don't know. I had no clue. I was just really lost. And I will tell you, though, it was funny. I was very free-spirited, long hair, just I wanted to be in the woods type of person. So I had this one class, and I'll never forget it. It was in James Hall, Intro to Forest Management, and this professor just lit me up. So the funny thing is, like, I'll go into forestry. I want to be a park ranger, a forest ranger, frolic around the woods. That was my dream. And I pursued
good trade,
that.
by the way.
It was a good trade, except when you come out, there's no jobs.
Right.
So what happened with me is after I graduated high school, and the irony of college, the irony with college was so funny. It's like I literally put myself through college. Like I'd work to go to class. And it got so bad that I was cutting class to go to work to pay for the class I was cutting.
Right.
So the thing, I still graduated with I think it was like a 3.3, 3.4 GPA. doing all these science classes.
Still not knowing what you want to do with it.
Not knowing what I wanted to do.
Wow.
Graduated college. I moved up to the White Mountain area, North Conway. Became a ski bum. Hiked all the time. Very freewheeling, not clue. Thought about going into real estate.
What? So at that time, inserting yourself in that period of time, were you fulfilled? I was loving life.
You
were, yeah. Okay.
Oh,
so
yeah.
everything was great.
Everything was great. Yeah. Like it was kind of my.
Because I'm not married. I don't have kids. I don't own a home. Everything's just free and.
It was free. It was
wonderful
that
time
was
of your
my
life.
time out. It's like I always felt like I was doing things not for me. It was kind of what was expected of me.
Mm-hmm.
I never got the pressure from my
and
parents.
that was your time
that
where
was
it was
my
like,
time.
I'm doing this for me because I want to do this.
Yeah. It was
for you.
great. I skied 100 days a year. I was in the greatest shape of my life. I had a lot of good friends I met up there. It was just always had cash in my pocket. I didn't care.
Yeah.
Like I had no real responsibility.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so I did that for about.
You think about what percentage of people actually take the time to do something
everyone
like
should
that.
do it.
Everyone should. How
Everyone
many
should do
actually do?
Very rare.
Very, very
I think
rare.
it's where we set the expectations.
Mm-hmm. We're just going.
We're going.
On the path that set, the expectations set a lot of times externally.
Yeah.
Not internally for me or reflecting. And good for you for doing that.
Yeah, so it was funny, but then it was like that all came to a halt because my grandmother did this work for this wood products manufacturing company and lined up an interview for me. So I went in. I didn't know if I really wanted to do this, but I had to come back down south.
The winter was over.
The winter was over. They gave me a job. And it was funny. You're 24 years old at that time. They gave me started pay of like $65,000 a year.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like crazy. So their dream for me was to be the plant manager. So I went on this journey. I was really good at this job, but every Sunday around noontime, I became miserable because I knew I had to go to bed soon to get up at 5 a.m. to go to work.
On Monday, yeah.
I was really good at that job. I managed about 120 employees. I did the budgeting. I handled the HR, production, inventory. I handled everything.
You were the catch-all.
I was the catch-all.
Wow.
Yeah. So when my predecessor left, who was a great mentor to me, but the company was about to fold. It was about, I don't know, I think at the time it was like $250,000 underwater. And within a year, I got it turned around. That was profitable. And it was funny because at the time I had gotten married, and my wife, we found out we were expecting. Mm-hmm. So great joy. Like my whole life was I wanted to be a dad so bad. Like I wanted to be a dad. That was one of the greatest thrills I was going to have. And it was funny because inventory day, I'll never forget this moment. I mean, I was miserable. Every day was just a drag, going to work, coming home, you're beat down.
Gosh, what a way to live.
It was awful.
Not good.
Especially what I just came from.
Right.
Bliss. So
out there shredding it up on the slopes every day.
Every day, having money. Yeah. Now you're a family man, you're providing. So it was, I'll never forget this day. So it was inventory time, and I got really sick. So I went into the shop still, set everyone up, had my phone on me, said, hey, listen, I'm going home for the day. You guys know what you got to do. Put your reports on my desk. I'll handle it tomorrow. The following day, literally, the owner pulls me in. He accused me of faking it.
To skip out on.
Yeah, and he fired me.
Oh, my gosh.
So it was the greatest day. It was one of the greatest days. I was at first shocked, but I called up my wife at the time, and I said, you're never going to believe this. I got fired today.
That's amazing.
She's like crying because she's like 3 months pregnant, I think.
Oh,
at the
yeah.
time.
Emotions are.
I'm going to collect unemployment. I'm going to remodel the upstairs baby's room. And that's what I did for 3 months.
So were those tears of joy?
No, she was very scared.
It's fearful.
Yeah.
Tears of fear.
Yeah.
Okay,
so,
yeah.
but then I found.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no, she was.
Because what you
petrified.
painted on the back end of that image is like wonderful things.
I was all excited.
Yes.
Like I felt like the lifting of the world came off my shoulders. And so I'm like, no, I'm gonna collect unemployment. I'm gonna work on the rooms and remodel upstairs, and I did for 3 months. It was great. The house was always clean, dinner was always made, and I literally got a lot done, and I was enjoying it.
Right.
But that doesn't pay the bills. So I got another management job, and I was only there for a few months, and I got laid off. And then at that point in time, Connor was just born.
Okay.
So life got real fast.
Yeah.
So what I did is I actually, at that point in time,
incredible how your perspective completely shifts when you have a child.
It's not about you anymore.
It's not.
Not at all.
And it's like internally, it automatically, your focus is definitely now shifted towards the people that you're providing, quote unquote providing for.
Everything was about him.
Yeah.
Everything. I wanted to make sure, the funny thing about being a father, and I think every father, for the most part, I would like to believe that if they feel that they just want to do better for them than they might have had. And I had a great parent. My dad was great. He worked all the time, though. I never saw him that much because he worked 7 days a week just to provide. As you get older, you don't really appreciate when you're younger. I actually had resentment for him during that time because he was never there. But as my younger brothers were going through and he was doing better in life financially, like he was at their soccer games and more present. So I had a little bit of resentment at the time, but, it was just recently, I'd say within 6 months, I just really said, I'm like, Dad, I love you, and I have become have been my ultimate hero and role model. And it's just funny how that is evolved at this time.
Yeah.
So it's great. And I hope someday Connor feels that way about me.
Right.
But he's 16 now, and he thinks he's 22 or older.
On top of the world, can do no wrong. Have all the answers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's their journey.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's what they have to do.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
But I have to let him fall and trip over. And let him brush his knees off now and pull up his bootstraps.
Exactly.
So I teach him a lot about mindset and positive thinking. I've been doing that with my kids for a long time. So I got into this other thing. I got laid off.
Yeah, so Connor was born. You're laid off.
Yep.
You dialed in the house.
Life
in the house. Looking good. Then what?
Yeah. So when
did you come to the realization?
So I started my own thing. I started just doing everything and anything to put food on the table and pay the bills. Because at that point in time, I encouraged my then wife to become a nurse. So she was in nursing school full time.
Oh, wow.
So she wasn't working. We were paying for nursing school. I had 2 kids. This is not quite yet.
So what year would this have been?
So Connor was born in 2010. I went on my own. No, 2007.
Okay.
And then for a few years, I
Wow,
just kind of like try to do everything and anything I could do.
Right before the financial meltdown.
Yeah. Yeah. So during that time frame, it was funny. After that layoff, my grandmother, who was my grandfather passed away. I think I was 6 months old, and she was raising 6 kids of her own. My mom was her oldest. It was at that time frame that I was in this series of layoffs, and she had broken, I believe, her shoulder and going through breast cancer at the same time, but she owned a tax practice. And I went in there, I just said, hey, because it was wintertime, I was like, you looking just for some help? I'll just data entry. No big deal.
Right.
She needed the help, so I was literally in the back corner, Carhartt pants on, flannel shirts, hide them in the back closet, just data entry.
Cranking away.
But the thing what happens with me is that I can't go into something without trying to figure out why do we have to do this and how does this flow through. So that year, what my main thing was is I was data entering, but at the same time on my own, I was kind of like, okay, well, why do we do this? this. And I
Right.
started researching and studying.
You're asking a ton of whys.
A lot of whys.
For every data
Everything.
you enter,
Yeah.
you're asking why.
Yeah. The next year I came back, and it was that year I was actually preparing returns. Nope, just data entry is my only experience. And then I'll never forget this comment from her. It was at the end of the year, the season. She goes, and this is about 2009, you got to piss or get off the pot. And I was like,
What do you mean?
yeah, what do you mean?
Right.
It's like, you know, you have a talent. She's like, you can do this. So I say, okay, but it's only seasonal. She's like, that's okay. So what I did is I just
Started
up. In 2010, I bought her out.
Oh, wow.
So, because she was getting to the age where she wanted to retire. So
Right place, right time.
right place, right time. It was just so easy for me. And the funny thing about it is it's so obvious because in high school I was such a math and science geek. I really was.
Right.
Like, I joke about it. I did the physics Olympics in high school. Like,
That's
it's so
amazing.
brutal.
That's amazing.
It's like,
So you love numbers.
I
You're
love
good
it.
with numbers.
I love
numbers
it.
talk to you
I
and you
love
talk
it.
to them. That's
I
wonderful.
love it. I love in making, I love making, how I describe it, making numbers tell the story. And what got me about the tax code per se is not the actual preparation. It's how do you work within the code to optimize for the client. So that's how I started my journey. Is I got into the tax practice world, and it was through that practice. I mean, you literally see everything. Financial statements, Social Security numbers, everything.
Right. Interest income, all that.
Everything.
All that's laid out in the tax
all of
return.
it. So it was one time, and I'll never forget the clients, and they'll remain anonymous for this podcast, but I'll never forget them. And they're saying they're griping about their Edward Jones account. I can remember this clear as day. And I'm looking at this, and it was during, like, after the meltdown, but things were starting to turn around, right? After the trough of 2009, 10, and everything's kind of rebounding. And they're like, we keep losing money, and we don't. I'm like, you got to tell your broker that you might want to look at this. Just kind of start talking, like, ask questions. It was them that said, why don't you do this? And I was like, yeah, why don't I do this?
Ding.
Yeah.
Light bulb goes on.
So I didn't know quite what this was. You know,
At that time, you were just doing tax returns.
just tax returns. So it was funny. I had a painting company I owned. I was doing, like, I had also kind of odd jobs gig going on. I had people working for me. It was just all these small things.
Jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades, just trying to get it done.
Right.
Just hustling, just pure hustle. And I'd never forget the moment where I was on this job and I was hating it. And I'm like, I'm just too smart for this. I got to do something more. It's just not fulfilling. So I got my insurance license. That was all
That was
focused.
the next step.
That was the next step.
Okay.
So I studied for a weekend, went and took the test, came out like 30 minutes later. The guy's like, you're not done. I'm like, yeah, I think I'm good.
I'm done.
I got a 90. He's like, oh my God, I never saw this before.
That's great.
So I started with that, did door-to-door, like, final expense sales, hated it, because the problem with me was when I was...
So at this point, you were doing the tax returns, but that's a seasonal.
Seasonal.
So in the off season, I was jack of all trades, all these other businesses, didn't like what I was doing,
Hated
got
it.
my insurance license, tried med sups. That's a grind.
Grind. Final expense.
Amen. I mean, true respect and kudos to those that paved their way in that space. 100% credit.
I'm glad I did it because
you realize how hard it is.
It's hard.
It's hard.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And you have to have a certain mindset to make sure you go up and you're going to put miles in and steps on.
Yeah, that's exactly
It's
right.
boots on the ground.
Yeah.
The problem with me in that whole field is that, and again, I'm not going to negatively talk about that field because I think there's a lot of good things, but in that time frame, like, a lot of that whole thing is replacing what they have.
Right.
And I was so honest, and I'm like, oh, I know you have a pretty good plan, and, like, if we do this, you're back in a 2-year kind of look over. And I'm like, it's just not good.
Yeah.
So I was like literally the worst salesperson.
Right.
there.
You're anti-sales unit.
I was anti.
Yeah.
Like I was like the low man on the sales board, you know? What happened was I hooked up.
So that's gone. I got to find something else to sell.
I hooked up with this gentleman. I forgot how I met up with him. Trey Vidari. I'll never meet him. He's out of Texas. Great guy. And he really helped me cut my teeth into what I call the real insurance industry and on the financial industry.
Okay.
So I did a lot of work with him. He hooked me up with a bunch of advisors that I mentored with.
So at that time, he enlightened you to insurance products like life insurance, annuities, things of this nature. Okay.
Yeah, really enlightened me that and into the AUM world.
Got it. Okay. Into true
service.
Investment management, full. Okay. Yeah. Wonderful.
And so.
And now you've seen the light.
I've seen the light.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I really realized, I'm like, wow. And it wasn't until Trey cut my teeth that I moved to this other group, and they had, like, this was the first, like, management group I worked with, like, real deal, like, training, coaching conference with other advisors, and I had some amazing mentors that really kind of made me look at things differently. And through all these pieces that I got from them is how I got to where I am today.
Okay.
Yeah. And I love it.
And so then your practice was born.
Are
you you're independent now?
I am.
Okay. So in what year was your firm established?
Okay. So that, funny story. So the group that a real management thing, I started that, I want to say I started with them in 2013.
Okay.
12 or 13 is where I joined with them. I really grew with them. So my practice at the time
things are going well on the market. Then we've come through the financial.
Right. Dinner seminars were rocking because it was still really profitable,
right.
And like it was fun for me. Like I realized the number one fear for everyone.
Are you a ham?
Huh?
Are you a public ham? Like you like being on stage and being a ham? You know what I mean? Like you eat it up.
I like it.
You do. Okay.
Yeah.
Were you that way out of the gate?
No.
Yeah.
Petrified. Scared to death. I was scared to mess up. I had $5,000 my first dinner, so I'll never forget it. It was a $5,000 commitment, and I scraped everything I had to get $5,000. And I remember trying to convince myself, my wife at the time, like this is going to work. So
everything on the line.
Everything was on the line.
Yeah.
And so we went in, and I was scared. And I'll never forget, we broke even.
What topic was it? Do you remember?
It was very general.
Okay.
It was not. It was really
like the eight mistakes that retirees make, or whatever version.
My whole angle has always been a holistic view, like looking at everything as a whole.
Okay.
Like looking at all the pieces of your financial horizon.
Right.
So in my first one, I talked about investment strategy, Social Security planning, annuities, life insurance, long-term care, like so all those.
Okay, pieces. So it's more of like a fundamentals to financial and retirement planning, just to scratching the surface on a number of different areas, enlightening the audience on your level of knowledge and expertise, and hopefully they say, you know what, this seems like a really honest, knowledgeable person, and I'd like to sit down with him.
Yeah, and I think that what got me was I also brought the tax angle in.
Which is a huge value.
It's huge value. I don't realize, like, so one of the biggest things I would tell people is that, the biggest expense in retirement is not necessarily Medicare. Long-term care would be the fastest one to wipe out your estate.
Yeah.
But taxes is your number one expense.
Right.
And I would explain to people like that. And what they see is when they see that you're, I think where my edge is when you're a financial advisor, but you're also a tax practitioner. It is a perfect marriage. It truly is because the number one variable we have no control. Those two variables you have no control over is time and what's your tax rate going to be. No control.
So do you still have the tax?
I do.
You do. Okay. Yeah. So your company will do how many returns a year?
So we will do, our average is between our individuals, our corps and non-corps, about 800.
Okay.
Yeah,
wow.
It's legit.
Okay, so you had this tax planning business.
When I bought it, we only did 300.
Only, okay. So, but that's still an incredible number to start with, where you're like, okay, now I'm an advisor.
Yeah.
I've got the accreditation.
Yeah.
What was the journey? Was it very easy and seamless? I mean, besides the Edward Jones clients who said, why don't you do this for me?
No.
What was your journey to start to implement that into the practice?
So it's funny. It took me a while to integrate it into actual tax practice, because I had what I felt was a confidence issue when I first was starting out. And I had all these great relationships on the tax practice, and I knew it was a great foundation to work with. It wasn't until I would say, I would love to say probably around 5 years into really perfecting my craft that I actually started.
Because you were already doing seminars by then, you're cutting your teeth that way.
That way.
People who weren't interfering or a party to the tax planning business.
Yep.
Okay, so you're really treating in this two separately siloed businesses for the
100%.
time.
It wasn't until I would say probably about my time frame's so messed up, but about 5 years into this whole journey that I started saying, hey, because you see this financial statements like, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah.
I would like to get 15 minutes of your time just to see what we could do.
In that journey, as a hindsight, would you have done anything differently? Or, in other words, if you know what you know now.
I wish I started it 10 years earlier.
The whole thing, the whole practice. Yes, for sure. Yeah. But in the context of when you actually became involved with the tax planning business and then became a wealth manager, and you took 5 years before you're going back.
No, I think it was right.
Okay, it was. Because you needed to gain the knowledge and level of expertise.
I felt like that, the one thing about the financial industry, I think you just can't jump in and be the expert. You really have to grow as an individual. I think you have to learn from others that have been in the game for a while.
Right.
Not only calling it a game, but in this field for a while.
Yeah.
And I really took that to heart, to learn from everyone and say, okay, who do I match up with that these advisors are more like, or what part do I like about him or her, what she does or he does. And what I did is I realized through that journey that no one does taxes. No one understands the code. They always default ask your tax advisor.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I had this edge. And then what I really realized is it's a process, right? What is my process? I remember going through this whole journey, trying to replicate other people's process, and it never felt right. So I had to take that time to kind of realize, okay, what is it about me that is my process, and how do I like going about it? And mine is really, I really kind of get to know the person first.
Right.
My fundamental, what I really realized going through that whole process is that I need to have chemistry with that person to work with that person. And I think that person has chemistry with me to work with me.
You, right.
Because you literally need full-fledged trust.
Right.
And I've had a few experiences where on paper I look good and that person looked good on paper, and we literally had a financial divorce in 5 months. It was that made me realize, whoa, time out. I'm not meant for everyone, and everyone's not meant for me.
Yeah. I think that's a very important realization for advisors to come to truth with. Yeah. In the sense that that's okay. Yeah. That's why there are so many advisors that exist.
There are a lot of advisors.
There are a lot.
Yeah.
And just different. Yeah. Right? Different investment philosophies, and great. Find the right client that fits your practice. It's okay that you we're not seeing eye to eye.
Oh, 100%.
Hopefully, amicably, we can separate ways, and that's okay. And it's a very important point in an advisor's career where they need to get to that point.
Yeah, and it came to me early. Before I was really, I could say comfortably financially, I just realized I didn't want the stress and anxiety of watching a phone number come in.
Right.
Or having to call that person back. Right. That's the worst.
Yeah. In the beginning, it's just survival, right?
Survival.
I take on every single client I can because I'm trying to survive, but then I get to a level of sustainability. There's where I start to be able to have clarity as it relates to, I don't need every one of these clients.
I guess if I look back, that's one of the biggest things I wish I could change is my patience and understanding that part. because I take what I do so personally, like so personally. Like, so if like accounts are down,
you're very affected by that?
I'm very affected. Like, it stresses me out. And it's to the point where I had to step back and realize, okay, like, you're doing the best you possibly can.
You're doing everything right. You're following your models. You're doing everything that you have to do.
And I think the biggest...
Some things are out of your control.
100%. I think the biggest validation I had, quite honestly, was during COVID, when I realized I was doing things right. That was the biggest thing, because I'll never forget February 28th, I got alert that all my investable assets in the market went off. And, you know, remember March, it dropped like, what, 37%?
Yep.
We missed it all. But the thing is, I didn't think about that part, is I didn't realize that when that was happening, I was making the calls. I wasn't getting calls coming in. And I'll never forget some dear clients of mine. I called them. I was like, hey, listen, I just want you to let you know. No, we know. You have it set up. And I think it's just because of the process I created, like, to make sure you start with the foundation, build from that way up. And again, that was just from taking from everyone and realizing what my process was and understanding who the clients that I want to have. And I think the chemistry part is so important, because I have built that trust with these people, and they become like family. Like, they know my kids, I know their families. And it's more there's a business relationship. And I thrive off that.
That's a rewarding and very fulfilling place to be.
Love it. It sounds so cheesy, but I love it.
Well, I think it's honest.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, at least be honest, right?
Yeah. Right.
Okay, let's talk about your book here.
Yeah.
The 21st Century Retirement Rescue.
Yeah.
Save your retirement before it's too late.
Yeah.
You and Michael Williams.
Yeah, my colleague.
Okay.
Friend of mine.
How did something like this happen? Which I wanted to talk to you about this Roth IRA. I would be very curious to get your take.
Yeah.
So set that aside for now, because I want to talk about the book.
Yeah.
Of right, wrong, ins and outs of truly this Roth conversion. Is it for everyone? Is it not for everyone? So pause on that.
Okay.
Let's talk about the book here.
Yeah.
What brought you to create this book together?
Okay, so
and what the heck is this about?
All right, so Mike Williams and I, let's start with the relationship of Mike Williams and I, because it's a funny one.
In the beginning, I see you both have authored your stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was funny. We met at a conference, and it was an advisor conference with our previous group affiliation we had. And like, we never really met, but it was towards the end, and we just kind of sat at the same table, and we just started rapping. And I was like, oh my God. And I think he had, oh my God, like, wow, there's a lot of rapport. So we exchanged business cards, and, you know, I go do my own thing in my life and business, and he's doing his thing in his business. And it was until about, I think it might've been like 8 months later.
Really?
He calls me. He's like, hey, just was thinking about you. I just really connected, you know, want to kind of talk a few things. And we just kind of, that's how we built.
And you're like, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, it's really crazy. So we had this rapport.
Where does he live?
He lives in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yeah. So he lives right outside, I think it's about an hour north of Pittsburgh. And so we started literally chatting almost daily from that point on. Just life, work, ideas. And we were talking about, the topic we were just talking about was like, I was doing a lot of dinner seminars at the time.
Right.
And he's like, oh, you know, what do you talk about? And I kind of was like, well, you know, I go through this like kind of fundamental foundation building, holistic approach to financial planning. I was kind of going through this. He's like,
does it work? Does that actually work?
He's like, man, we should write a book about that. I'm like, yeah, why not? Let's not write a book about it. I had no clue. You know, I've always like, you hear
it's all tongue in cheek.
It's all tongue in cheek.
At the beginning anyways, right?
So what we did, and it was funny, what it forced me to do is like, I said, yeah, actually it's not a bad idea. So when I do a presentation, I basically have a quick outline with bullet points, and I don't memorize scripts. I just can't do it. I like talking to the people in the group. I like having them interact with it, ask questions in the middle of it. I just love being on the fly with that. So, but it forced me to kind of like say, okay, let me put this really into go like this. So what we decided to do is we did a few interviews. We're going to do a ghostwriter. Well,
that's where you started.
That's where we
journey.
Started.
Yeah.
We hired a ghostwriter.
And how'd that go?
Well, they interviewed us for 8 hours through, of course, a few days. Like, they recorded us, and they did a manuscript. And I'll never forget, I was helping an advisor transition in Rhode Island at the time, and the manuscript came in. I think I read through the first 3 pages, and I threw the whole thing across the room.
Mm.
I was like, we just spent thousands of dollars for a 5th grader to write our thing. So I called up Mike, and I was like, I am beyond upset. I use other choice words, but I'm beyond upset.
Right.
And he's like, I feel the same way. He's like, you know what? We just got to write it. And I'm like, Mike, I'm not a writer. He's like, I'm not either, but I know a guy if we write it.
Oh, wait, you're an English major.
Yeah, that was a mistake. I'm not an English major. I think people that have English as a second language have better grammatical English than I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a beaner. That's what I do.
Got it.
My current wife will be the first one.
Your language is numbers.
Yeah, language. The love of my wife now will be the first one to tell you my communication skills when I'm trying to describe something is the worst.
Yeah, it's like stop.
Yeah,
Jason,
stop.
Let me tell the story.
Exactly.
That kind of thing.
That happens all the time.
Okay,
actually,
yeah,
what
yeah.
you just said is actually brings me back to like last week.
Mm-hmm. At dinner, group dinner. Right?
Yeah, right. So we started taking hours out our day, Saturdays and Sundays. I'd write part of the manuscript, he'd write a bit. We kind of blended together. We edit each other's. And what this process was like, the ghostwriter said was going to be like 6 to 8 weeks, was about a year, almost 2 years.
Okay. Because you're running your busy lives.
We're trying to patch it together. And it was funny, as you're reading it through it, you don't really kind of realize the work you put doing.
Right.
I almost felt like I didn't realize it until I actually got the book.
Because it's just pieces?
It's just pieces.
Pieces that you're all splicing together.
Right. And so, but what it did is it made me really sit back and evaluate like what we do. And I was like, wow, this is pretty comprehensive. Mm-hmm. So our goal with this book was to give a comprehensive but very layman's terms of what to consider. Mm-hmm. You know, and we're actually, the funny part about this book is that when we published it, literally that same year, the CARES Act and Secures Act came out, so we had to edit it. So
that's a little setback.
So we're actually in an editing mode right now. But, you know, we talk about Social Security plan, pension planning, income strategizing, investment, how to think about differently for investment planning, estate planning. There's a whole thing on estate planning in there.
That's great.
Now, we're not attorneys, and we can't draft them, but we can say, like, you got to consider
general education.
General education.
Yep.
We're adding in the Medicare part because Medicare is a huge part of retirement that I think in the first draft, we kind of didn't think too much about, but, you know, as you get more and more involved, you're like, I'm not very heavy in the Medicare field, but I do it. I'm licensed to do it.
Well, and you talked about earlier, too, just long-term care planning in that segment of retirement.
Oh, that's in there.
It is. Oh,
yeah,
great.
Yeah.
Good
it's
for you.
all in there. So what we did is when we built this book, we made it set up so it's an easy read. And it's also, we designed the book so that when you get to a chapter, right, let's say it's about income planning, like we set it up so you can almost reference it, like a reference book too.
Mm-hmm. To come back to, keep it on the bookshelf.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, and it's
Good
funny,
for you guys.
I go back to it all the time. Like, so if I'm talking to a client or a prospective client and we're talking about the concept of fixed index annuities, maybe it's foreign to them. I'm like, hey, read pages 55 through 65.
That's great.
It's in chapter 4. I don't know what it is.
Right.
And I'll earmark it. Like, oh, you wrote a book. I'm like, yeah, it's a labor of love. I love doing it.
That's
I
great.
hated it.
Right.
Because
But
I
I'm
never
sure
thought it was
you're
going to
so
be done.
pleased that you've got to the other side of it. I'm always interested
When I opened that book, when I first saw this, I literally, it sounds, I started to cry.
You cried.
Because it was just this huge, wow.
Yeah.
I can't believe
did this.
We did this. It was great. And what it does is like, so when I talk to people, I said, you know, my philosophy is right here. Take an hour and a half, read it. And if you don't like it, then I'm not your person. You know, I talk about gold and silver in there. as part of a portfolio or a possible part of a portfolio. Like there's just a lot of things. There's things I want to take out. There's things I want to add in. So it's always this work in process. But yeah, I'm proud of it.
That's great.
It's kind of cool.
Good. Yeah, very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
like I actually wrote it. Like
Right.
that's the funny part. It's like
Right.
a lot of the books out there, you have a lot of people that do have ghostwriters.
Mm-hmm.
We actually wrote it. And then we had someone to kind of edit it and like format it. And when that was happening, that was when it was like really cool.
Yeah, it's an interesting journey I find with a lot of the advisors we do have the chance to sit down with, where when they have authored a book, their journey and the lens at which drove them to create a book and put their thoughts down on paper per se.
Yeah.
It differs.
Yeah.
And I'm always interested in their unique journey.
Yeah.
Which drove them to where I need to do this. But every single time it's a referendum and it's an accreditation to who you are as an advisor, and it does set you apart.
It's
so
a great
kudos
business
to you.
card. It's a great business card.
An incredible business card.
And, you know, I think the initial thought was, and full transparency, I think we really went into this like, you know, let's just blast someone else so we have an accreditation piece. But when we saw that first manuscript, and I was so grossed out by like that we just paid money for this.
I can't put my name on this.
I can't do it. And then it became a labor of love. It really kind of made me hone into what I was becoming, because I was like, okay, this is important to me. And I want people to understand like what I find important in the grand scheme of things for people. I want them to understand like this is my philosophy. This is how I kind of think. And I joke to people all the time, like if you see me looking up, my head's full of bubbles and arrows. Like I've been characterized as a visionary. So because what we do is so personal,
right?
And it has to be personally tailored to every person you sit with.
Right.
And that's why I love my job.
Yeah.
I love my job because you can have this 3 sets of people in there with the same set of assets, but totally different needs and goals.
Right.
So their plans are totally different. And I love taking all the puzzle pieces and kind of putting
it all together. Yeah.
And say, okay, what do you think? And then we have discussion. Well, I hate this, want to change this. No problem. Let's just do this. And I always tell the people, whether you work with me or anyone else, just make sure they're a good fit for you. Because if you don't have the chemistry, you never kind of have the trust. And if you don't have the trust, it's never going to work.
Right.
Make sure they're fiduciary, they're acting in your best interest, and make sure they're holistic and making sure they are looking at everything other than just the money they're managing.
Right.
Because retirement's it's everything.
Yeah.
And how I tell people is like my ultimate goal is that when you get into retirement, we turn on the light switches and everything we plan for just gets turned on. And you're just living life.
That's great.
Let me take the stress and the anxiety of all the what needs to be tweaked. You live.
Okay.
That's my job.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
I love my job.
Okay, I got 2 more questions.
Yeah.
One, what is your general take and consensus on Roths, and in particular Roth conversions today?
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because it's almost like anecdotally, it's this proposed sales strategy that everybody should be doing, and I'm not so sure that that's the right answer.
Yeah.
To your point, every portfolio is a little bit different. Everybody's client, specifically from a taxation standpoint.
Sure.
Well, you know, we need to be careful about a number of things. You don't just flip these switch and pull these levers without really thinking this through.
Yeah.
Not just for your life, but ultimately for your children's life.
Sure.
So high level take on when you have a client who comes to you and says, hey, I've got this $500,000 in an IRA.
Yeah.
I want to convert it all to a Roth because I heard that's the best thing to do.
Yeah, we don't do that.
Okay.
Yeah. You need to have tax diversification of your income. I highly believe it. You have to have different levels on how your money's taxed in retirement. Like, so you have,
So go ahead.
Yeah. So you have pre-tax dollars, like your qualified funds. It's going to be taxed perpetually at whatever your marginal tax rates are.
That's right.
You'll have your taxable accounts, either, you know, qualified dividends, long-term gains, or short-term gains, which is considered ordinary income, which is basically the same as tax deferred. Then you have your after-tax or Roth, not taxed. Goes your beneficiaries, not taxed. What I believe is that you need to have a mixture of what I call different taxation of your incomes. Now, do I believe in Roth conversions? Absolutely. However, does it work for everyone? No. Does everyone need to do that? No. It really depends on what the other buckets of sources of income will be and how they're coming in. Is it just Social Security? Is it pensions? What is your need for income? Like when I do an income plan, like, so how I build is I always look at, like, have the conversation, what's your goals and targets in retirement? Like, what are your wants? What are your needs? Okay, the haves and wish haves.
Yep.
We build from there. Then you kind of build up, like, the ground up. Then you do your investment strategizing and all that fun stuff.
Right.
So when you're looking at the income plan and saying, well, I need to live $60,000 in today's dollars. Okay, what's Social Security? Then what I'm going to say is I bring in the other income, say, okay, does this make Social Security taxable? How does that work? Get standard deduction.
Right.
So and I don't want to minimize everyone else, but to be just an ordinary advisor without the tax practice behind you, it's very difficult to do. Because I'll do a lot of tax simulations. And then what I'll do is I'll do kind of breakouts. Now, is Roth conversions the end all be all? No, absolutely not. I think a lot of things we have to consider is, like, what is the future tax rates, which we don't know. When you look at the fiscal condition of this country, let's put it this way. If you ran your household the way the country does,
we'd be in bad shape.
We would not be right here.
Yeah. Okay. I think my takeaway is that the Roth conversion idea, although sexy, and on the surface very attractive,
100%.
There's a lot of complexities to it.
A lot of complexity.
And those complexities lie into the different sources of income that you're going to derive in your retirement, i.e., what's the taxation of each of the buckets that you're going to have for me to help you meet your need. And so, and also then you mentioned on the back end, well, we also have to forecast. And I would say some of that is very important to take the client's opinion.
100%.
Because it's all theoretical.
It's all theoretical.
What's the future tax situation going to look like? You may have one client who says completely something different than the other. Yeah. Okay, well, let's play into that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's their money, is my take.
It's their money. It's their they have to digest the fact that they're going to be paying taxes on this conversion today.
Right.
So it's a very delicate situation.
It is. One size does not fit all.
No, they do not.
That's what I mean.
And it really is tailor made, and you hit the nail on the head. What's palatable for the client? But I think as advisors, we have to step back and say, okay, let's just show them the doors, and whatever door they choose to go through, we got to walk that path with them. Whether we fully agree with it or not, this is the choice, and we're serving them. And so if they choose a door that you might not totally recommend, well, okay, they chose door number 2. Well, let's make this as easy and stress-free for the client as possible. And just work with those parameters. I mean, that's what I love, is that you have to be flexible. You have to be chameleon-like.
Right.
But yeah, at a high level, I think Roth IRA and Roth conversions have a place, but it's not easy.
Right.
It's very complicated.
Yeah. Okay.
It's very complicated.
Okay. Last question.
Yeah.
And as we close here.
Sure.
You mentioned you just had a battle with cancer.
Yeah.
You've come on the other side, and you mentioned earlier that you've also shifted, if not changed, your perspective on life.
Yeah.
Can you enlighten us on that?
Sure. So,
funny, not funny, how something like that in our life, front and center, whether it be a loved one, or ourselves dealing with a real health scare, does have a dramatic effect on how we shape the rest of our life.
Oh, yeah, big time. I can't appreciate it as much now. What I'll say is my diagnosis definitely not as dire as others.
As many.
I'm not going to, I won't minimize my thing, but I'm not also going to compare it to like someone that's really deep into it. So my first colonoscopy ever, no signs, no symptoms.
It's when they found it?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I came out of anesthesia, and I heard the word cancer and chemo. My wife, Danielle, came walking in the door, and I had tears stream down my eyes.
How old were you?
This was 47.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So so they brought the age. No, I'm sorry, I was 46. Yeah, 46.
Okay.
I have to do the math in my head now.
I'm the same way.
I think I'm perpetually 45. I don't know. So she came in and she's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "They just told me I have cancer." She's like, she just thought I was coming out of anesthesia because I was foggy.
Yeah, she's like, no, you're.
And so the doctor came in. He said the same spiel. And we had just eloped a month ago. Like, we both finally found each other. We came together. She has 2 girls. I have my kids. They melted together like it was like nothing. It's just so beautiful. And just such a huge moment in my life. And then like literally a month later, we find this out. So,
Right.
So there's also backstory behind that. I won't go into that, but God definitely talked to me about that one on how to find a surgeon. I'm sorry. So come out of there. I mean, I was just
in this journey.
I was just in a fog, and I'd probably say for a good week or 2, I was down, dark spaces. Just why can't figure this out. I just walked through hell for the past year and a half. With a lot of personal stuff that was going on, was coming on the back end of it, and then I felt like I was just gut punched again, and I was just like looking up, going,
"What's going on?
What's going on?"
Yeah.
So there was a pivotal moment within that 2-week span. I was walking in the front of my office space, and it was just me in there, and I just said, why God is this? And I just finally hit me, and it's just like a brick upside the head. I said, God knows I can do this. I can handle this. So I just really kind of focused on saying, okay,
recovery.
Let's I haven't had surgery yet, so let's go. Let's just do this. Let's kind of work through it. Found a great surgical team. After I left the surgical team, I felt good. They're like, listen, we're going to catch this, and we think we can get it all through surgery, which is great. But the scare was where it was located was on a blood vessel, so it had to take almost 3/4 of the colon out. So we're talking about complete change of the whole digestive system, maybe a bag. I mean, all these like things were like running through my head. I'm like, okay, trying to digest that. And it was like through this process, there was a moment where my wife and I were just sitting here and just kind of going through it. And I just looked at her. It was like out of nowhere. I'm like, no more negative thoughts, no more negative people. Because we were having a lot of negative forces kind of almost infiltrate our life and like almost dictate what was happening with us. I said, no more. We got to get focused. We got to get healthy. We got to get our minds right. So what I literally did is I'm a big believer in mindset, positive thinking, attracting good energy. Darren Hardy's book, Compound Effect, if you haven't read it.
Absolutely.
Changed my life. That book changed my life.
And a very simple book.
So simple.
Fill your bucket.
Yeah.
Surrounding people in your life with people that fill your bucket, not those that drain your bucket.
Yeah.
So positive versus negative is simple.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Like, I always tell people like how to describe them, like a little tangent here, but it's funny. If you go to buy like a Toyota pickup truck and you're thinking about it, what do you only see on the road? Toyota pickup trucks.
Right.
It's just how your mind works.
Yeah, no, that is true.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
But that book really changed
my life. I really want
a
a Ford Bronco. Then all of a sudden you start seeing nothing but Ford Broncos.
Oh, that one's cool. That one's all souped up. Yeah,
no, that is true. The mind is attracted. That's a powerful force, right?
It's very much so. So
you eliminated all the negativity and the people in your life.
I worked hard. Yeah, and you're never going to eliminate it all. So I got my mind straight, went into surgery. I got the surgeon came in after the next day, said we got it all, super blessed. 2 weeks later, I had a severe infection, but that was worse, but we got through that. And it's funny because I'll talk about my 2022 year and like, oh my God, that was such a brutal year. I'm like, actually the walk was hard, but if you got through all the stuff that surrounded us, my life was beautiful. I met the love of my life. I have 2 great, wonderful kids. I have great clients, great businesses. And I literally was able at that point in time to kind of reflect to say, if I didn't go through this, I wouldn't be feeling like, I just got to focus on being happy and
how blessed you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
On a scale from 1 to 100,
Yeah.
100 being the most healthy you've ever been, your skiing days, how healthy do you feel today?
Versus my skiing days?
Yeah, like when you said you were at the peak performance of your life, and
are we talking habits too?
you cast the scale.
I think my health is.
How healthy do you feel? Do you feel?
I feel good.
Good.
I feel strong. I wish I was more physically fit, but that takes a long time. I mean,
change that.
Yeah, I've been working on it.
Yeah, good for you.
I got cleared physically end of February. Then I took the tax season 10 on, so I'm working on taking off the tax season 10.
Right.
I had a kind of my daughter kind of went through a thing, and that took all my focus.
Yeah.
But yeah, now my wife and I are both on the like getting ready. But I mean,
Stay the course.
Mentally, I've never been stronger.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Very good.
It was funny. I've never been as sharp, business wise on how I'm thinking or how clear I'm thinking than I've been in the past year. Yeah.
Incredible.
It's awesome.
That's amazing.
It's great.
Good
I know.
for you.
Yeah. So a lot of fun things. Life's good.
It was great chatting with you.
Yeah. Likewise.
Thank you for the time.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Till
Thank
next
you so
time.
much. Absolutely.
Cheers.
Look for it.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Please subscribe, like, share, leave a comment or review. Be sure to check us out on social media at Optimized Advisor Podcast. Till next time.